The Galactic Council chamber floated above the capital city of Auraxis Prime, a gleaming citadel suspended in the void like a jewel. Beneath it sprawled the world's silver oceans, glittering under the light of two suns. It was supposed to be an ordinary assembly, another day of posturing, trade disputes, and ceremonial speeches about galactic unity. But the sky outside had gone silent. Ambassador Krell of the Zorith Dominion, tall, sleek, and eternally smug, stood mid-sentence, his translucent crest rippling in irritation as he noticed the sudden stillness. Normally the orbital traffic lanes above Auraxis Prime were a river of movement, freighters, diplomatic shuttles, pleasure yachts. Now, nothing moved. Even the traffic control hollow on the chamber wall flickered to red, its streams of light converging on a single blip, an unidentified object, inbound at impossible speed. Counselor Varric, Krell hissed, "Is this some kind of security drill?" The chamber's presiding chair, a crystalline being who pulsed with amber light, responded with a slow flicker. Negative. No drill is scheduled. That was when the alarms began. The great chamber dimmed as defense protocols engaged. Shield generators hummed. Automated sentry drones detached from the ceiling like a swarm of silver insects. The delegates, dozens of species from across 5 spiral arms, erupted in alarmed chatter. The object wasn't slowing down. Council command screens scrambled to identify it, but its drive signature was unknown. The object executed a final burn and came to an abrupt halt just outside Auraxis Prime's orbital perimeter, hanging there like a predator stalking prey. Its silhouette came into focus, long, angular, black as a shadow cut into space. A warship. Not just any warship, one unlike anything the Council had ever catalogued. Its hull was scarred but armored, built for endurance, not ceremony. It bristled with weapons arrays and emitted a low, steady energy pulse that made sensors scream in protest. And emblazoned on its side, in stark white lettering, were 2 words: USS Vanguard. The chamber fell into absolute silence. Admiral Sarvek of the Thalkar Navy rose from his seat, mandibles clacking in alarm. That vessel is not Council registered. No diplomatic codes, no transponder. His forearms slammed the console. Activate planetary defense grid before it fires. But before the order could be executed, the chamber's calm net crackled, not with Council encryption, but an open-channel broadcast, raw and unfiltered. A human voice. "This is Captain Daniel Hayes of the United States Space Navy, commanding officer of the USS Vanguard. To the Galactic Council, you are harboring war criminals wanted for atrocities against human colonies. Release them to us immediately, or we will come and take them." The delegates erupted into chaos. Krell nearly leapt from his platform. "Humans?" he spat, his crest flaring with disbelief. "Impossible. Earth is a backwater, they do not field warships of this class." But no one could deny what they were seeing. The ship outside was human. And it had just threatened the Council. For centuries, the Galactic Council had treated humanity as a curiosity, a young, noisy species from the Orion Arm, tolerated but never taken seriously. The Council had never feared Earth. Never needed to. Until now. In orbit, the Vanguard loomed in silence. On its bridge, Captain Daniel Hayes stood with his hands clasped behind his back, his jaw set like stone. The lighting was dim, the crew focused and grim. Tactical Officer Sarah McConnell read out sensor returns. "No defense grid activation yet, Captain. We've got every orbital platform in range locked and painted." Hayes nodded slowly. "They know what we can do." "Good. Hold position, make them sweat." He hated diplomacy. Always had. But after the massacre at Ceres Colony, there had been no choice. The Council had called it an unfortunate incident and refused to extradite the mercenary commanders responsible. They had expected humanity to submit, to grieve quietly. Instead, Hayes had been given command of the most dangerous ship humanity had ever built and told to make the galaxy listen. "Captain," Communications Officer Malik Johnson reported, "Council wants to open a secure channel. They're demanding to know your authority." Hayes allowed himself the smallest of smiles. "Good. Let's remind them." Back in the council chamber, the main holoscreen flared to life, revealing the image of Captain Hayes. The human's uniform was simple but severe, dark navy with silver trim, the insignia of the United States Space Navy on his chest. "This is an outrage!" Krell shouted immediately. "Human, you have violated Araxis Prime's security perimeter. You will withdraw at once." Hayes didn't blink. "Not happening. You have 30 minutes to comply with our demand." After that, he let the sentence hang, heavy as a loaded weapon. Counselor Varric pulsed anxiously. "Human Captain, you do not understand. To threaten the Council itself is..." Hayes cut him off with a glare. "I understand just fine. We tried talking. You ignored us. We tried negotiating. You stalled. And while you debated, 5,000 civilians were slaughtered. So here we are." A ripple of unease passed through the chamber. Even those who despised humanity could hear the steel in Hayes's voice. "This is not a threat," Hayes continued. "This is a promise. You have 30 minutes. Choose wisely." The feed cut. The chamber sat in stunned silence. For the first time in living memory, the Council, the greatest political body in the galaxy, had been given an ultimatum. And it had come from humans. Ambassador Krell turned to Varric, his crest trembling. "You cannot give in to this. If you do, every frontier species will think they can dictate terms at gunpoint." Varric flickered in deep amber, the Council's equivalent of a frown. "And if we refuse, that ship outside may open fire. We do not know its full capabilities." "Then find out." Krell snapped. But deep down, everyone in the chamber felt the same creeping dread. The Council had always believed humanity was beneath their notice, small, weak, irrelevant. The arrival of the Vanguard had just shattered that illusion. And somewhere, on the bridge of that black warship, Captain Hayes waited patient, unflinching, ready to do what had to be done. The countdown had begun. The council chamber was a storm. Delegates shouted over one another, their voices overlapping into a cacophony of fear and outrage. Holofeeds from every corner of Araxis Prime poured in, citizens looking skyward in panic, military commanders demanding orders, news broadcasters flashing warnings in dozens of languages. Counselor Varric's crystalline frame pulsed harshly for silence. "Enough!" The chamber fell quiet. "We must decide our course of action. Do we respond with force, or do we negotiate?" Krell's crest flared bright crimson, a display of fury. "We cannot allow this human captain to set a precedent. If we surrender fugitives under threat, the Council will be seen as weak. And if we refuse?" Varric countered sharply. "That ship could devastate this planet before we even fire a shot. Do you know what we are dealing with? Their drive signature is unlike anything in our archives. It bypassed 3 perimeter detection nets without tripping a single alarm. That is unprecedented." Admiral Sarvek's mandibles clicked as he addressed the chamber. "My fleet stands ready. If you order it, we will engage the human vessel and destroy it." Varric's amber glow dimmed to a warning tone. "And if you fail, Admiral? What message does it send to the rest of the galaxy if we unleash our might and still cannot defeat one ship?" The question hung heavy over the chamber. On the Vanguard's bridge, Captain Daniel Hayes stood motionless, hands clasped behind his back as the clock on the tactical display ticked down. 15 minutes left, Malik Johnson reported, tension creeping into his voice. Hayes nodded. "Any response from the Council?" "None." "They're still arguing." Hayes exhaled slowly. That was what he had expected. The Council was a bureaucracy. It would debate until the last second, convinced of its own importance. But Hayes wasn't bluffing. He turned to Sarah McConnell. "Target package is ready?" "Locked in and green," she said crisply. "We can disable their orbital grid in under 10 seconds. Hayes nodded. "Good. We'll give them one last reminder." Inside the chamber, the great hollow display flickered as every orbital sensor feed suddenly shifted. Dozens of defense platforms lit up on the screen not because they were powering weapons, but because they had all been hacked. One by one, their targeting arrays reoriented not at the Vanguard, but straight down toward Araxis Prime's own atmosphere. Gasps and cries broke out across the chamber. A council technician reported in a shaking voice. "Our entire orbital network has been compromised. They've overridden our control codes." Krell's crest flattened in horror. "That's impossible." A second technician interrupted. "Incoming transmission from the human ship." The holoscreen lit again, showing Hayes' face. This time there was no trace of diplomacy in his expression. "You have 10 minutes, Hayes said flatly. "I just took control of your defense grid. Don't make me prove it." The feed cut out. A deathly silence followed. Even Krell could not speak. Finally, Varric pulsed dimly. "It seems our options grow fewer by the moment." In orbit, the tension on the Vanguard's bridge was a live wire. "Captain, Council Defense Fleet is mobilizing," McConnell reported. 2 frigates and a cruiser moving into intercept position. Hayes' jaw tightened. He had hoped it wouldn't come to this. "Helm," he said quietly, "bring us 30 degrees starboard. Let them see we're awake." The massive warship rolled smoothly, bringing its main gun batteries into clear view of the approaching fleet. "Captain, they're locking weapons," Malik called. Hayes gave a single, sharp nod. "Fire a warning shot." McConnell's hands flew across her console. "Aye, sir." Firing. From the surface of Araxis Prime, millions of citizens watched as a single pulse of blue-white light erupted from the black human warship. It streaked past the approaching council cruiser, missing it by less than a kilometer, and struck a distant, uninhabited moon. The moon's surface erupted in a flash brighter than both suns, and a plume of molten rock billowed into space like a slow-motion explosion. Every sensor platform recorded it. Every ship in orbit saw it. The message was unmistakable. The Vanguard could have destroyed them. It had chosen not to. The council chamber dissolved into chaos again, but this time it was panic, not debate. Krell's voice rose above the noise, shrill and desperate. "We cannot negotiate with them. If we give in once, we will give in forever." Councillor Varric turned to him, pulsing a shade so dark it was nearly black. "Ambassador Krell, you will sit down. Right now, survival is the only matter under discussion." Varric turned to the rest of the chamber. "Transmit a message to the human vessel. Inform them that the fugitives will be released into their custody. Immediately." The vote was unanimous. On the Vanguard's bridge, Malik Johnson looked up from his console. "Captain, they've agreed. Coordinates for prisoner transfer incoming." A murmur of relief passed through the bridge crew, but Hayes did not relax. His eyes remained fixed on the tactical display, on the fleet still hovering near the planet. "Maintain red alert," he said. "They might try something stupid." McConnell nodded. "Understood." Hayes finally allowed himself a small exhale. "Prepare drop teams. We're going to get our people justice." Far below, the council chamber emptied in uneasy silence. Krell lingered, staring at the great window that overlooked the planet's glittering horizon. His crest twitched with fury. "This is not over," he muttered to no one in particular. "The humans have humiliated the council today. They will pay for it." But even as he spoke the words, he knew the truth: the balance of power had shifted. The galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again. That night, every news channel and every system replayed the same footage: the black warship appearing from nowhere, the flash of its warning shot tearing into a moon, and the council's reluctant capitulation. Across the stars, species whispered the same question. If this was just one ship, what else was humanity hiding? The transfer site was a bleak stretch of landing field on Araxis Prime's northern continent, far from the capital city, far from the crowds and news drones. The council wanted this handled quietly. The Vanguard descended through the atmosphere like a predator easing into striking range, its black hull gleaming against the twin suns. The ship's landing thrusters scattered dust and ice as it touched down with a thunderous hiss. Captain Daniel Hayes stood at the top of the deployment ramp, flanked by 2 squads of armored Marines. Their visors glowed an ominous crimson, their rifles locked to ready position. "This feels like a trap," Sarah McConnell muttered beside him, her hand resting on her sidearm. "It probably is," Hayes said evenly. "But we're not here to start a war. We're here to end one." The ramp lowered, and the human team marched out with slow, deliberate precision. Across the field, council guards stood waiting, their own prisoners in chains, 6 figures of mixed species, bound and visibly terrified. These were the ones who had commanded the mercenary raids on Ceres' colony. To Hayes, they weren't just targets, they were murderers who had slaughtered civilians and left children orphaned. Counselor Varick was present in person, glowing a cautious amber. "Captain Hayes," he said formally. "As agreed, the prisoners are yours." Hayes stepped forward, helmet tucked under his arm. "Scan them," he ordered. The Marines deployed portable scanners. One by one, the prisoners were confirmed, the IDs matched the dossiers. McConnell gave Hayes a nod. "All 6 verified, Captain." Hayes turned back to Varick. "This is the first wise decision the Council has made in months." Varick pulsed faintly in what might have been resignation. "We are not without sympathy, human Captain. But you must understand, the Council cannot operate by threats." Hayes's expression didn't change. "Then maybe the Council needs to remember that actions have consequences." The transfer began. High above, orbiting in the shadow of Auraxis Prime, Admiral Sarbek's fleet watched the proceedings. The Thalkar admiral's mandibles clicked in frustration. He had opposed surrendering the fugitives from the start. To him, every moment the Vanguard sat unchallenged on Council soil was an insult to the honor of the fleet. "This ends today," he hissed to his officers. "Target the human vessel. When the prisoners are aboard, we strike. A swift kill, before the humans can retaliate." Orders rippled through the fleet. Weapons began to charge. On the ground, Hayes's comlink buzzed with a priority alert. "Captain," Malik's voice said urgently over the secure channel. "We're detecting power spikes from multiple orbital platforms. Looks like they're charging weapons." Hayes's jaw clenched. "Of course they are." He turned to McConnell. "Get the prisoners aboard. Now. Double time." The Marines moved with sudden urgency, hauling the prisoners up the ramp. Varick's glow flared in alarm. "What is happening?" Hayes stepped closer to him, his voice low and dangerous. "You tell your admiral to stand down. Right now. Because if your fleet fires on my ship while my people are inside, I will make sure Auraxis Prime burns for it." Varick's color shifted wildly, fear, anger, indecision. He signaled frantically to his aides. In orbit, Admiral Sarvek received the Council's urgent command to abort the strike. His mandibles clicked in fury. "Cowards," he spat. "You bend knee to these primitives?" But as he stared at the tactical display, at the Vanguard's weapons systems still locked on every orbital platform, he hesitated. His officers waited for his final order. Sarvek's mandibles clicked again, this time in bitter resignation. "Stand down," he growled. The fleet powered down its weapons. The last prisoner was dragged aboard. The Vanguard's ramp retracted, sealing with a hiss. Hayes walked up to the bridge, silent and grim. "Status?" "Orbit clear," McConnell confirmed. Their fleet stood down. Hayes took his command chair. "Then let's make our exit before they change their minds. Helm, brake Atmo, full burn." The Vanguard roared back into the sky, leaving the landing field scorched in its wake. As the ship broke free of Auraxis Prime's gravity well, the bridge crew worked in tense silence. "Prisoners secure," Malik reported. "They'll be transferred to the tribunal station in the Sol system per orders." "Good," Hayes said quietly. McConnell glanced at him. "Sir, you know they'll call this an act of war." Hayes stared out at the stars, his expression unreadable. "Then let them. Humanity didn't ask for this fight, but we won't be ignored, and we won't be victims. Not anymore." He turned to his crew. set course for Sol, and tell the galaxy we're coming home. In the council chamber, news of the Vanguard's departure spread like wildfire. Some delegates were relieved. Others were outraged. Krell stood trembling with fury. "You've doomed us all," he shouted at Varric. "The humans will think they can dictate to us whenever they please." Varric pulsed a steady, calm blue, the council's color for finality. Perhaps they already can. For the first time in centuries, the council's authority had been challenged and broken. Across the galaxy, word of the confrontation spread faster than light. Smugglers, mercenaries, frontier warlords, all who had dismissed humanity as weak, now whispered a different story. They spoke of a black warship that had held the mighty Galactic Council hostage. Of a single captain who had stared down an entire fleet and won. And somewhere, in the dark between the stars, humanity's enemies began to feel something new. Fear. Captain Hayes stood on the bridge of the Vanguard, watching the stars stretch as the ship jumped to FTL. For the first time since Ceres, he felt the smallest measure of peace. Justice had been served. But he also knew this was just the beginning. The galaxy had seen what humanity was capable of. The illusion of their weakness was gone forever. And if war came, truly came, Hayes would be ready. Because on that day, the Council had learned a lesson they would never forget. You can threaten humanity. You can hurt humanity. But you can never break them.